She had scrubbed that kitchen floor on her hands and knees 3 times before sunrise, and it still wasn't enough. "Do it again," Vanessa said, not even looking up from her phone. "I can still see a streak." Naomi Bell didn't argue. She never argued. She dipped the brush back into the bucket, felt the cold water bite at her knuckles and started over. Behind her, the marble floor of the Cole mansion gleamed under the kitchen lights, spotless to anyone but the woman determined to find fault with it. This was the 4th time that morning. Naomi was 26 years old, and for the last 8 months, this house in the hills outside Nashville had been her entire world. She woke before the sun, made breakfast for a family that rarely thanked her, cared for a toddler who wasn't biologically hers but who called her mama anyway, and went to sleep long after the rest of the house had gone dark. She did it all without complaint, because complaint was a luxury she couldn't afford. Somewhere 2 states away, her own mother was fighting late-stage kidney disease, and every paycheck Naomi earned went straight into dialysis bills her mother's insurance refused to cover. She had come to this house through a woman from her church who cleaned for wealthy families and had heard the Coles needed live-in help. Naomi hadn't asked many questions. She'd needed the job too badly to be picky. What she hadn't expected was Vanessa Hale. Vanessa was beautiful in the way magazine covers are beautiful, polished, sharp-edged, and cold beneath the surface. She was engaged to Nathan Cole, the man who owned this house, this company, and, according to Vanessa at least, everyone who worked inside its walls. "You missed a spot," Vanessa said again, crouching slightly to inspect the floor, her diamond bracelet catching the light. "Honestly, I don't know how someone your age doesn't know how to clean properly." "I'm sorry, Miss Hale. I'll fix it." "You'll fix it," Vanessa repeated, almost amused. "That's all you ever say." She turned and walked away, heels clicking against the floor Naomi had just scrubbed clean, leaving faint gray smudges in her wake. Naomi didn't say a word. She simply reached for the brush again. It was in moments like this, alone, exhausted, on her knees at 6 in the morning, that Naomi allowed herself exactly 60 seconds to feel the ache of it. 60 seconds to remember she used to be a nursing student with dreams of her own. 60 seconds to miss her mother's voice, weakened now by illness but still warm every time they spoke on the phone. Then she would breathe, stand up, and keep moving. There was no other option. Not when so many people depended on her strength. She didn't know that morning would be the one that changed everything. Nathan Cole had been standing in the hallway longer than either woman realized. He was 34, self-made, having built a logistics company from a single delivery van into a fleet that spanned 3 states. He was not a man who raised his voice easily, and he prided himself on staying out of the daily friction between Vanessa and the household staff. But something about the sound of Naomi's voice, quiet, apologetic, worn thin, stopped him cold. "Vanessa," he said, stepping into the kitchen. Vanessa startled, then recovered instantly into a practiced smile. "Nathan, I didn't realize you were up. I was just." "I heard you," he said simply. "How many times has she redone that floor this morning?" "It needed to be redone. She's careless." Nathan looked past her, at Naomi, who had frozen mid-motion, brush in hand, eyes fixed on the tile as though she could disappear into it. He noted the dark circles under her eyes. He noted the way her hands trembled slightly, not from fear of him but from sheer exhaustion. "Naomi," he said gently, "you can stop. The floor is fine." "Sir, it's really no trouble?" "Stop," he repeated, more softly this time. "Please." She lowered the brush slowly, unsure if this was a trap. Vanessa's smile tightened. "Nathan, you're being ridiculous. She works for us. This is literally her job. Her job is to clean the house, Vanessa. Not to be your personal outlet for whatever's bothering you today." "Excuse me?" "You've made her redo perfectly clean floors, perfectly folded laundry, and perfectly cooked meals more times than I can count. I've let it go because I told myself it wasn't my business. But watching you do it to her face over and over at 6 in the morning, that's my business now." Vanessa's face flushed red. "You're taking her side. Over mine." "I'm taking the side of basic decency," Nathan said. "Something you seem to have misplaced somewhere between the wedding planning and the new car." He didn't wait for her response. He crossed the kitchen, crouched down beside Naomi, and gently took the brush from her hands, setting it aside. "Go rest," he told her. "That's an order, not a request." Naomi's eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall in front of Vanessa. "Thank you, sir." "Nathan," he corrected softly. "Just Nathan." That night, Naomi sat on the edge of her small bed in the guest wing, replaying the moment over and over. She told herself it meant nothing, that wealthy men occasionally had moments of conscience, and that tomorrow things would return to exactly how they'd always been. She'd learned a long time ago not to hope for too much. Hope, in her experience, was expensive, and she couldn't afford disappointment on top of everything else. But something had shifted, and over the following weeks, it kept shifting. Nathan began noticing things he'd somehow missed before. The way Naomi hummed softly to herself while cooking, a habit she probably didn't even realize she had. The way she spoke to his young nephew, who often stayed over on weekends, with a patience that felt bottomless. The way she never once asked for anything for herself, even when it was obvious she was running herself into the ground. One evening, he found her in the laundry room well past midnight, folding towels with her eyes half closed from exhaustion. "Naomi, go to bed." "Almost done, sir." "I mean, Nathan. That's not what I asked." She managed a tired smile. "If I don't finish this, Miss Hale will have something to say about it in the morning." Something in his chest tightened at that. "Sit down for a second," he said, pulling out a chair. "Talk to me. Where's your family? You never mention them." And so, hesitantly at first, she told him. About her mother's illness. About the bills that never seemed to end no matter how much she sent home. About growing up in a small town where people whispered about her family's poverty like it was a moral failing rather than bad luck. About giving up nursing school when her mother's health collapsed, because someone had to hold the family together, and there was no one else to do it. Nathan listened without interrupting, something few people had ever done for her. "You carry all of that," he said finally, "and you still find the energy to hum while you cook. What else can I do? Falling apart doesn't pay the bills. You could let someone help you," he said quietly. "You don't have to carry everything alone." She looked at him for a long moment, searching his face for the catch, the condition, the price tag that always seemed to come attached to kindness in her experience. She found none. "Why are you being so kind to me?" she asked. "Because you deserve it," he said. "And because I'm starting to realize I haven't been paying attention to the things that actually matter." From that point on, small things changed. Nathan quietly arranged for a specialist to review Naomi's mother's medical file. He adjusted her schedule so she had actual days off. He began speaking to her not as an employer speaks to staff, but as one person speaks to another they respect. Vanessa noticed immediately, and it enraged her. "You're spoiling her," she snapped one afternoon, finding Nathan on the phone with the specialist's office, coordinating an appointment on Naomi's behalf. "She's the maid, Nathan, not a charity case. She's a human being who's been working herself to exhaustion while you treated her like furniture," he replied evenly. "I'm not spoiling her. I'm treating her the way anyone deserves to be treated. This is embarrassing. People are going to talk. Let them talk." Vanessa's suspicion calcified into something colder over the following weeks. She began going through Naomi's things when she thought no one was watching. A birthday card Nathan had given her, a new pair of work shoes he'd insisted on buying after noticing her old ones were falling apart, a handwritten note thanking her for a homemade meal she'd made for his sick mother during a visit. The confrontation, when it came, was explosive. "You're sleeping with her," Vanessa hissed, throwing the shoebox at Nathan's feet. "Don't lie to me." "I'm not sleeping with her," Nathan said, his voice dangerously calm. "But I understand now why you're so afraid of that possibility. Because deep down, you know she has something you never bothered to have. Character. How dare you compare me to the help?" "Don't," Nathan said, his voice sharpening for the first time. "Don't ever call her the help in that tone again. Not in my house." "Your house. I decorated this house. I chose everything in it. And I own the deed," Nathan said quietly. "Vanessa, I think it's time we admit something we've both known for a while. This isn't working. It hasn't worked in a long time. You're breaking up with me? Over a maid." "I'm breaking up with you because of who you are," he said. "Not because of who she is. I want to build a life with someone who treats people with kindness when no one's watching, not someone who treats cruelty like entertainment." Vanessa left that night in a fury, promising consequences, promising ruin, promising he would regret this. But 3 days later, when Nathan found Naomi in the kitchen, her hands trembling as she read a resignation letter she'd written and rewritten a dozen times, he realized the real threat to their fragile new understanding wasn't Vanessa's anger. It was Naomi's fear. "I think I should go," she said quietly, not meeting his eyes. "I don't want to be the reason your life falls apart." "You're not the reason anything is falling apart," he said. "You're the reason I finally opened my eyes. People will say things about me. About us. They already are. Let them," he said, echoing the words he'd said to Vanessa, but with an entirely different meaning behind them now. Naomi, I'm not asking you to be anything other than exactly who you are. A woman who worked herself half to death to keep her family alive, who never once let bitterness win, who deserves so much more than a house that treated her like she was invisible. Tears slipped down her cheeks, the ones she'd refused to let fall in front of Vanessa finally finding their way free. I don't know how to trust this, she admitted. Kindness with no price attached. I've never had that before. Then let me be the first, Nathan said. No conditions. No price. Just the truth. I care about you, Naomi. Not because of what you can do for this house, but because of who you are in it. Word spread quickly through their small circle as it always does. Some of Vanessa's friends spread cruel rumors, painting Naomi as a gold digger who'd schemed her way into a rich man's affections. But those who actually knew Naomi, the church members who'd watched her sacrifice everything for her mother, the co-workers who'd seen her exhaustion and her endless patience, refused to believe a word of it. And slowly so did everyone else because the truth had a way of outlasting gossip. 6 months later, Naomi's mother sat in the front row of a small, sunlit chapel outside Nashville, her health stabilized thanks to the specialists Nathan had quietly arranged, watching her daughter marry a man who had once found her scrubbing his floor at dawn and decided, for the first time in his life, to actually pay attention to what mattered. Naomi wore a simple dress, nothing like the extravagant gowns Vanessa once modeled through that house. She didn't need extravagance. She had spent her whole life being told she was invisible, disposable, replaceable, and here she stood, chosen, seen, and loved exactly as she was. I used to think being needed was the same thing as being valued, she told Nathan quietly as they stood together after the ceremony. You taught me the difference. You taught me first, he said. I just finally learned to listen. What would you have done in Naomi's place? Stayed silent to keep the peace, or trusted that someone would finally see your worth? If this story moved you, let us know in the comments below. Like this video if you believe kindness always finds its way to the surface, and subscribe for more stories about dignity, resilience, and the people who refuse to let the world break them.